here in front of all of you, but it's great to see all of you here. Hope you've enjoyed your lunch, and we'll be moving on to the Business at Agri Forum really shortly. But I'd just like to introduce you to my speakers today, and they're going to give you a brief introduction to themselves. On my far left, your right, is Tom Rawson, James Price, and Peter Kendall. Tom, can we start with you, please?
I'm 36 years old, live in Yorkshire, married with 3 children. We're dairy farmers. We milk around about 1,000 cows on 3 units on block calving, pasture-based system. We've also got a small consultancy business. I guess other industry involvement, a Nuffield Scholar, recipient of a Henry Plum Foundation Award, and I sit on the board of Dairy Co.
James.
Good afternoon, everyone. James Price, arable farmer from Woodstock in Oxfordshire, about 600 acres, all combinable crops. That's quite straightforward. We do all sorts of other bits and pieces in terms of organic matter and precision farming and cover crops and everything that's sort of quite sexy in farming at the moment, which is good fun. Industry-wise, I sit on the HGTA main board. I'm also involved in other areas of HDV work, RMKT committee at the moment. And yeah, enjoying it.
And lastly, but by no means least, so Peter Kendall.
Thanks. I was rather hoping that James wasn't going to follow the example of doing his age like Tom did, but I'm 54 years old. And without doubt, the old git on the platform. I suppose 8 years as President of the NFU would be the reason I've been asked to be here today, but I've also now moved on to chairing the levy board, the collective, which is called HDB, the Agricultural and Horticultural Development Board. The bit that I would most like to focus on is how we tried over time at the NFU to move the view of farming. And if you go back to the days when we'd had BSC foot and mouth, we had government talking about importing foods and didn't need to produce it. The fact that I think people do view, and I think the Assembly of Young Farmers down in Torquay today, this is an exciting, vibrant industry of the future, would be, I think, the message we try to convey. Why? Because we want the government, we want consumers to think this is a great industry. And the young farmers are the key to that.
Brilliant, thank you. Just some quick notes on the format for today. We've had some pre-submitted questions, but if any of you have got any points you'd like to add, Ed Ford will be wandering around with a microphone for us, so please raise your hand and he'll come and see you. Thank you. Unfortunately, the person that posed our first question, Charlotte Johnston, can't be here today, so I put it to the panel for her. If panel members are approaching someone for business help, whether that be financial, joint venture, share farming, etc., what would be their top 5 tips? Tom, do you want to start?
I've jotted a few things down on this really. It's just difficult to bring it all together. I'd say for me was, no matter what job you're doing at the moment, just get a good track record. In terms of no matter what level you're at, just do the best you can. That's a good start. Have a good plan, know where you're going to go and a good plan how you're going to get there. Take every opportunity to upskill yourself, go to as many training things as you can and just get out there. Certainly know where you're going and know what you want to achieve. Networking as well is another big one. And then just look at as many opportunities as you can. You know, you're not, for example, if you're looking at a tenancy, you're never going to get the first one. It's unlikely if you're ever going to get the first one you look at. But unfortunately, you can waste many days, many hours, a lot of fuel and a lot of travel time looking at things, but unless you're out there, you're never going to get the right ones.
Again, I had a little jot through. I think I'll read through what I wrote down backwards in a way. So if you're approaching someone for business help, first thing you've got to do is you've got to go there with a clear plan and vision about what you want to do with it. There's no point turning up and expecting just to be given it. You've got to prove what you want to do. You'll be realistic about what you want to do as well. You don't want to turn around there and sort of exaggerate what you're going to do. So it's got to be an element of realism there. Research the people you go to see. Quite often they'll say to you at the end of an interview, so if you've got any questions for us, and the worst thing you do is sit there and stutter on it. You've got to be clear about what they're doing as well. Be enthusiastic. Passion and enthusiasm go a long way, so they'll carry you a long way. and find the appearance, make sure you look right when you go there. Even if it's just a case of putting a tie on, Peter. But you know, just make sure it's
You read me, I was about to offer that up as a piece of advice. Skills and training, I think, is absolutely fundamental. And Tom talked about a track record. But the starting point, if we look at where farming is going in the future, the fact that you can demonstrate the skills you have, the education, the experience you've accumulated is absolutely vital. I see the farming industry being so much more high-tech about demonstrating how you could add something to a parcel of land or a farming business. They're taking the time out. I know when you're young you think that 3 years or that 2 years is a long chunk of your life, but getting training, getting skills is absolutely fundamental. Something, you know, my time if you try to spend taking afternoons out to be trained, have someone beat you up and say how you can do something better. It is invaluable. Often you think, well, I could be doing something else. Skills and training, I'd say that 5 times. But my last point, and I'll say this from being the old bloke on the table, I think the farming industry is incredibly generous. I mean generous with their time. So if you're a young person looking at doing a new project, and you know somebody in your area or the neighbouring county who's been successful, go and talk to them. Get somebody who will, because I don't know of a successful farmer who doesn't want to see other people get on. And if you can have somebody who is prepared to share with you some of the pitfalls they've had, and, you know, Tom will talk about some of the challenges you see in farming, and James will say, but actually having somebody who's been there and done it, be prepared to pick the phone up. Ask somebody maybe throughout the Young Farmers or the NFU or another organisation, who would you recommend? But be brave enough to go and ask for someone for their advice and their feedback.
I think just to pick up on everybody's point really, I hope you guys are all aware of organisations like the Lord Plum Foundation. They're out there giving grants for you to go and do your training, but also pairing you up with a mentor at the same time. So you've still got someone to go back and feedback to, get a sounding board for ideas. I don't know how important that's been to you guys as you've gone through your farming careers, of just having that sounding board, and as much as having that person that's been there and done that before. But
yeah, from my point of view, I only quit farming in 2005. I had enough all to get out. I was a Welsh Company Farmers course. It was down in White, so it's in Cirencester now, and I sat in a room for 3 weeks with 18 other guys. I was the youngest that's ever done the course, and that transformed my vision and my view of really my life in whole, so that I came back and sort of thought, right, let's really get on with this. So that sort of thing is absolutely invaluable, and I'd urge any of you to seek that out.
has anybody got any points to make on this on the floor? You'll be very quiet this morning. Okay, if we move on to our second question then, is Caroline somewhere in the room? Caroline True from Devon?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Caroline True, Devon YC County Chairman. A question really for the whole panel, but before I do, thank you very much for coming here today. I sit on the National AGRI Steering Group, and to have such a well-qualified panel to debate here is wonderful, so thank you for coming. My question really is for the whole panel. For when you started your own career in farming, what did you find as the biggest challenge and how did you overcome it? Thank you.
Who wants to start?
Okay, so it's quite interesting. I looked at this question and I sort of wrote down a couple of different things which I'll go through in a minute, but actually what I thought about it, so actually one of the biggest challenges I had was having a farm in the first place. Yeah, I'm extremely privileged to be in a position where I could say yes or no if I wanted to go farming, but equally that builds a bit of complacency into what you're doing. So yeah, I could just go farming, go home, go help Dad, no problems, and eventually the farm will take it over. Actually, if you haven't got that, then it's far more. You know, you've got to make it your own. You've got to work at it. You've got to work a lot harder. And some of the best farmers I know are farm managers because they have to report to someone. They have to do it right. But on the back of that as well, when you do get to yourself established, and particularly in my situation where I was a farmer's son, and it was who farms that land? It's Malcolm Price. To get my name in there was always one of my biggest challenges, to get out from the, not the shadow as such as my father, because he's extremely generous, I've been very, very lucky, but to establish myself in the industry. And one of the ways I did that was to get off the farm and go and work elsewhere. And I worked with AGRI for about 5 years, did an awful lot of work with them, got out on the farm, got all around the country, talking to some people. It comes back to what Peter's saying, in terms of people who are happy to share their knowledge, and the number of farm offices I've sat in and gained experience and ideas from other people for free was absolutely fantastic. So.
Peter?
Yeah, no, I'll tell a bit of a personal story, because I think so much of farming businesses, family businesses, do come down to that sort of personal interaction between parents and when you come into the farming industry. I was the youngest of 4 children. I had 2 elder brothers and a sister, and that was part of a family partnership when my father farmed with his uncle. So when I came over to farm, I was the 5th principal in the farming business. So trying to go and make an impact when there's 2 senior generation and there's 2 other brothers already ahead of you, my sister, we managed to get her married off to the neighbouring farmer, if I can say that. She now runs the farm for him, so I think it's a reasonably progressive relationship we operate. So I came home to a family business that was, almost already carved up. So that was the challenge for me, was that I came home, and you can all tell from my involvement in the NFU, I was always a shrinking violet, always held back, never pushed myself forward. So just trying to establish yourself. And if any reason why people say to me, how do you get on and get involved in the industry, I always had to sort of make room for myself. I sort of force my way in. And that was quite challenging. I suppose the way I did that, the way I overcame it, was developing my own area of expertise. By working bloody hard at one aspect of the business, so you really demonstrate a skill and a value to that farming business. I go back a bit to the training skills again, showing that you're actually good at something. But the challenges went on, to be honest. I'll share this with you as well. I lost my father when I was 29, had a brother commit suicide 3 years after that. And I was farming then with just my brother and myself, and the bank stops the cheques. That's a wake-up moment when they say the business has changed fundamentally and you've got to go and prove yourself. And again, a track record, a confidence in what you've done is really important. But from all of those challenges you had, opportunities came out. And I think it is about how, as individuals, you respond to that. I have again the example I gave you earlier on about the farming industry being full of generous people who share with their time. Some great farmers in our part of the world who, when we had a difficult time, were prepared to give you an hour over a beer or chat about what they've done with their businesses. So never being afraid to share what challenges you face, chatting to people, being open, because there was lots of reflections on how people run family businesses. But my father did that, and we did plan for the future collectively, and although we never planned for the eventualities that panned out, the fact that as a business we talked about the issues we faced was incredibly important.
Tom?
I reckon for me, probably a parent's attitude to change was the difficult thing to overcome. And actually for me, getting into a discussion group, going on my Nuffield scholarship, and coming back and implementing those changes. They wanted to crossbreed all our cows. It's going to devalue the herd. It's going to do this, that, the other. And then, a couple of years later, overheard father telling somebody how brilliant our crossbred cows are. And, so you just got to work through that. And I think the other thing is, don't get wrapped up in the fact that he got a farm off his dad and I haven't, because it's not all great. At the end of the day, I came back to a tenancy. My parents had done really well to win a 180 acre tenancy, but they had 50 dairy cows and they had more debt than they had asset. So at the end of the day, it wasn't such a great thing to come back into anyway, but I accept the fact it was a launch pad, but I will have to spend the rest of their life making sure that they're alright, still drive around in Discovery, have all the bills paid for in the house, all the rest of it. So don't get wrapped up with the fact you haven't got a farm. Just get out there and move on, really. If you have got a farm, go back to just get your succession right. Just really work with your parents and and your siblings, make sure that you've got a clear plan. You know, I just don't want any fallouts in the future with, oh, sister got this, another brother got that, and really just nail it all now and just sit down and get on with the business and just make some money.
I know, Caroline, you said all four of us, so I'll be brief, but I think the easy thing for me to say would be being a woman in agriculture, and I don't necessarily think that. I think I'd have to have proved myself whoever it was, and I still think that's a challenge for me now at home. I'm very fortunate, we've got a family farm in our family, but due to a family split, trying to work my way up back into the business is difficult, and starting off small and still working for other people and getting that reputation behind me is what I'm working really hard at the minute. But I still get, oh, you're so-and-so's daughter, aren't you? Or you're so-and-so's little sister, and I have my own name. I am my own person, and sometimes you just have to jump up and down a little bit of that, and I think it's problems all of us face. Coming into agriculture from outside and forging our own identity that way, and not being the outsider in inverted commas, or being the son, daughter, little brother, little sister, older brother, older sister of somebody else who's already making their way in the industry. Is Campbell Scott about? Hello, our favourite Massey man of the day. That's not to offend him.
Yeah, Campbell Scott, I'm Director of Sales Engineering for Massey Ferguson for the Europe, Africa, Middle East region. And my question relates to land prices and the possibility for new entrants to come into the industry, or possibly as importantly for existing farmers to expand. At one time, probably 15, 20 years ago, there seemed to be relatively free availability of cheap land in the world in certain continents. I'm thinking particularly in my region of Africa or in Central Europe for our former CIS, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, etc. But nowadays there doesn't seem to be cheap land available anywhere. We've got big agri-businesses coming into Africa, buying up arable land, particularly where there's water availability. We've seen lots of corporations invested into huge enterprises in Central Europe, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan. And where my question's going, when I look at the land prices in the world, I think the net impact of all of this, amongst other reasons, is that the UK has got the, if I'm correct in what I'm saying, got the highest land purchase price, I think, almost in the world today in terms of pounds per hectare. And therefore my question to you guys was, how does a new entrant come in and build up a profitable business? And secondly, an existing farmer, how can they expand, which many people would need to expand to get to a certain level of economies of scale or efficiency? So that's the question.
Thank you. As I've picked on the other two, Peter, would you like to start?
Yeah. First of all, Campbell, the question towards the end moved towards just a bit of farming. I was going to start off by saying that young farmers developing within the industry, should we consider a career in farming is about having your own farm or your own bit of land, or is it about being involved in this great industry? You could be working for Massey Ferguson, you could be, say, John Deere. That wouldn't be very tactful, would it? Or there's a lot more Masseys being sold in my part of the world now than there are John Deere's, probably a few. We're trying to dig ourselves out. I just know there's a generation where, probably because of that really awful image of farming, the people didn't come and work within the industry. So if I talk to, the boss of Frontier Agriculture, he'll tell me there's a generation gap. So people coming in now have a chance to really move on to these farming businesses and have brilliant jobs. The result of some of these pan-European, global farming businesses is they need really great farm managers. Now, would someone rather have a career structure that means over a 20-year period they could be ending up managing a larger operation that allows them to have proper holidays, proper salaries, than have a very small unit in which they never are able to have a normal way of life. So I think there's a massive range of jobs within farming, whether it's land agency, technical, whether it's within the supply chain, right across the board, that I think is opening up massive opportunities right now. But then I think about how people get into farming, how they start off on the ladder. I look around some of the examples I know of people I've met, and there's some really inspiring people who are younger than me, God forbid, who have in their lifetimes built great businesses. Like Guy Poskett, who chairs the NFU's Horticultural Board at the moment, started off with a very modest farm, massive, biggest carrot grower in the country now, through just hard graft, specialism, creating opportunities. Robert Law, who writes in the Farmers Weekly car on a regular basis, and a mate of mine down the road in Royston, first generation farmer, just got in, worked bloody hard, was a specialist in certain areas. Started with sheep, because in our part of the world there were a lot of sheep about, picked up grazing for next to nothing, was a great blagger of why he'd give you a sheep at some point in the future, and sometimes it materialised, but he got on and really drove his business tremendously well. How would I advise people now if they were starting out and wanted that ambition of doing something themselves? And I've had these conversations in my past life as well with a number of young farmers. Get a specialism. Now, you might be out there doing precision farming work, advice, doing soil testing. And if you develop a really good relationship with a farmer who's looking to contract farm out, or a landowner who wants to rent his farm out on a yearly basis, perhaps you develop that sort of relationship. In Wales, I've come across farmers who are doing the scanning of the sheep. And the bloke who didn't want to do the work anymore said, well, do you want to raise my grass? How do you look at what the next technology is that the old gits in the 50s can't handle, but the young guys and girls can take to the farmers and develop a rapport? And no one's ever said there's an easy way in. You don't want government to meddle, I think, in the marketplace. You've got to find a niche. Now, the other point you made was about expanding existing businesses with the high land prices. Peaks and troughs that we're currently experiencing in the industry will create opportunities. It's about positioning yourselves, either with a tractor you've already bought, or a farm you've got well capitalised, you've got your skills, you know what your niche is. But one thing we're going to see a lot more of is volatility. And in my part of the world, I can tell you today of 5 contract farming opportunities. Because the problems with blackgrass, with the anti-bureaucracy of CAP reform, with grain prices being on the floor, means some people are saying, sod this for a laugh, somebody else can have a go at it. So it's how you prepare your business for when those opportunities come, you're in a really strong state to say, actually, I'm going to grab that opportunity. And when other people are running in one direction, if you've got real courage, you go in the opposite direction. And no one can tell you when that moment's right. But whether it's Guy Poskett or Robert Law or David Spellers of this world and the poultry world, there's some bright people out there who pick those moments to go in the opposite direction, but they've got their business in a strong position to make that jump.
Brilliant, thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, Campbell, the only place in the whole world where you can buy cheap land is Scotland. So, I'm not quite sure why that. I don't think anybody wants to live there. When you live in France, a very sensible decision. I think the thing with land buying, it's never really on my radar to actually end up buying any land. It's, highly wealthy, sort of Eastern England arable farmers, not unlike the one at the other end of the table. We'll let them be happy taking the 2% return on land. And we're looking for the 8 to 10% return by farming it for them. And I think no matter what you start with, especially when you start with nothing, your return on capital is the most important thing you've got. If you've only got £1, you get 80p back every year, that's great. And I think that's the thing for me. And I think investment companies now, I think you're going to see a rise in their land portfolios, because UK is a very safe place to buy land. And they are, for them it is all about land valuation increase over time. So if we can harness their capital and their available capital, companies with 100 million to spend on land, one of the problems for these companies, they can't spend that money quick enough before they have to start paying a return to their investors. So I think we've got a huge opportunity here as younger people in the industry to create a career based on farming other people's land for them. The key for me as a dairy farmer is to try and own as many cows as I can. Cows for me is the way I can make the best return, a highly liquid asset that you can sell on if you need to in a hurry. They have a calf every year, so you'd hope that with good management, low replacement rates, you can grow your asset base. Let these other guys spend all this money on land and we'll look after them for it.
James?
Thanks, Lindsay. Nothing like going last to have all your points taken away from you before you get to what you've got to say. I fully agree with what the others have both said, and it comes back to, if I take the question back in two halves, Peter's point on there's other ways to get into the industry. I've already mentioned that farm management is a great way if you want to get into it, if you want to manage, you get to learn, make yourself stand out, make yourself an individual, and someone that people want to come to farm. The contract farming that we took on 2 years ago, they didn't tender for it, they didn't put it out to the market. They came to me and said, will you farm our farm for us? Now, how you get your name, your face out there, so that you're well known, you've got more opportunity to do that now than I think you ever have. You look at Tom on Twitter, you look at any of us on social media. Our names are out there all the time. I have a habit of getting into magazines, but again, it gets my figure. I wasn't going to mention the competition, Tom. We are right now. But it's all about getting yourself known and recognised, so that when someone thinks, okay, I'm going to put a tender list together of say 10 people that I want to look at this, particularly contract farming where your own merits will need land. It's not a rental competition with who can pay the most rent for land. It's all about it's done on your farming ability. So you've got to have your name out there and get known for what you're doing. In terms of if you've got land and you think, okay, how do I want to expand on it, how do I want to do more? Well, there's two ways of looking at it. One of which is, Tom's already mentioned about the asset base and the fact that you've got, land is increasing in value. Well, if you want to go and invest in something else, with interest rates where they are, they can only go one way from where they are. You've got something you can borrow against. So that's an opportunity to take some of the value that's in that land and use that to set another business up. Or alternatively, you look at the intensification on the ground you've got. You look at opportunities you've got. So I was on a farm last weekend down in Sussex. They're taking the 1 to 2 degree rise in average temperatures, and they've put a vineyard in. And it's taken them, I think, 7 years to get to the point where he starts selling his own wine. When you look at the gross margin on 15 acres, it blows arable farming or any kind of livestock farming that you could do on that 150 small acres, completely out of the water. So
Drinkable, is it?
it was very nice. Yeah, it was very good at that. But he's his experience as a marketer, but that's what he did. He's gone for some vertical farming. He's taken what he's got and gone up, and he's using his assets and sweating that as hard as he possibly can.
I think that all sounds really, really positive, and taking advantage of opportunities is something that young farmers are great at.
Let's make a point to the opportunities as well. I think there are some favourable rules about, whether it's a family farm or whether it's a tenanted, owner-occupied family farm or a tenanted farm. It's a tremendous base to where you can launch a business from. The fact you can use that as somewhere to base a tractor that you might be contracting, or to park machinery, or to bring stuff back to it. The fact that we have rules that do allow you to be able to build agricultural occupancy houses as well onto farms. There's real potential for people to use that as a launch pad. When people think, oh, it's bloody difficult, you can't get on, just look at the positives of having a starting point to work from. And then, as I said, if you've got no start at all, if you've got those skills, those opportunities, if you push yourself around and raise the profile of both Tom and James, are really good examples of, you'd be amazed where openings come from.
I think that again links straight back into young farmers and taking every opportunity that's put in front of you. There are a lot of opportunities there for us with our sponsors, within the organisation itself. Just take those and make the most of them. Really make the most of them. Next question is from Mr. Chris Manley.
Chris Manley, National Vice Chairman and a proud Devon YRC member. As farmers, how do we ensure that we keep producing food that consumers want to eat, rather than producing something that we expect people to buy?
Who wants to go first?
I think we talked about this earlier, so I think it should be.
Duly elected.
Look, I'll pick it up as a difficult issue, because, and again I don't say this because there's only Paul Christensen here who's old, as regards the farmers and the rest of the young farmers, so I can be disrespectful. Paul won't mind for a moment. Some of the old gits, like me and Paul, grew up with the milk marketing board, with the potato marketing board, with quotas, with set fixed prices. And actually, you were rewarded for just producing something. So the mindset did develop. That's what I've always done. The subsidy check arrives, whatever I choose to produce, or the market will be buying it up. And I've had this in my current role as chair of the levy boards. The potato marketing board, as a history lesson for the youngsters here, used to buy up surplus potatoes, cover it with dye, and then give it out for people to feed to animals for livestock. I've had farmers ringing me up this year saying there's a glut of potatoes. Why aren't you buying them up, dyeing them, giving them to animals for animal feed? And I had to explain that one, there's been quite a good silage crop, and there's a lot of forage and hay and cereals everywhere. But the mindset was very much amongst farmers that whatever I produced, somebody would get rid of it. And potatoes are, continuing that analogy, is a really good example, because we've had probably this year produced 20% more potatoes than we would have done in 2012, because the weather has been superb. I've got farmers who say we must advertise them and get rid of them. Now the point is the demand for fresh potatoes has declined for 70 years, year after year. But processed potatoes is going up every year, because everyone who's driving down ESO would have been eating crisps on the go, that have had wedges in the pub last night, and processed potatoes is going up year on year. The challenge is that we're importing the spuds for processing, and we're not switching from producing what the consumer wants to buy. We're doing too much of what we've historically done, and that's just a massive challenge. I think we have to. And one of the things we'll look to try and do at HDB, I think, with more profile, is really clearly demonstrate consumer insight work, to demonstrate what those trends are. Because if you're a young farmer looking to make that step on the ladder, you don't want to be going and investing in something you know that year on year the trend is declining. You want to be able to spot where the opportunities are, where the trends are. I'll give you a good example. Bill Jordan was a success story in my part of the world in Biggleswade in Bedfordshire, Jordan Cereals. He went off to play in a rock band at the age of 21 in California, and he saw all these hippies in California eating granola and cereal bars. And his dad, George Jordan, who used to be a great character in the Biggleswade Rugby Club with me, would say, you know what he did? He said he turned all the crap we took out of the horse food into cereal bars for you guys. But he just picked a trend. He saw what was going on. I've heard Bill Jordan talk about a shift from proper meals to grazing on the go, the amount of American meals had out of the household. And I think what we have to do as an organisation is be really clear and get that market insight information about where the trends are. And we've got to try and move away from thinking there's someone is going to pick up whatever you want to produce, and try and make sure people know where the market is going.
James?
If I come at it from a slightly different angle and say, in terms of what I do as a sort of an arable grower, it's in a way you could sit there and say, well, I grow a raw commodity, how can I possibly try and get it to the end consumer, because I'm that much removed from it. But actually you've got to start looking at it from a different way. Even to the point of where, if what variety I grow, I ring up the grain marketing company I use and I say, okay, what do you want to buy? or all our wheat at the moment goes to Warburton, so I've got a definite fixed market for it. And then when it comes to actually before you put it in the ground, you can start your marketing campaign. So rather than coming to February, opening the shed door and going, I've got 5 ton of wheat to sell, I wonder how I'm going to do that. You have a plan, you have a strategy, you know what you're doing throughout the year. Now, okay, it's a bit of a gamble with the prices at the moment, and that's all about risk management. But you've still got an opportunity there to have an end market and then market it properly to it. Even that's even before you get into niche crops and start saying, you can look at your land and say, I can grow anything on this land. What can I grow that people want to buy? So there's flexibility in arable produce.
In dairy farmers, we're so bad at doing any of this. I've got a couple of mates through Nuffield that are egg producers, and they'll say, I've just taken on this new farm, I'm just going to put 300 cows on. Oh, so where are you going to market your milk? What? No, I'm just going to start milking. And then somebody's going to pick my milk up, and the 19th of the next month they're going to give me a milk check, and then I'm going to send them some more milk. I don't know where it goes, I'm not really that bothered. Now, I think that is predominantly the attitude of milk producers. I think as now being a farmer owner of Arla, it's been quite interesting now as the Arla have started to brand their own products. And it's really exciting now to see that the other night on telly they just started advertising this skier, which is which is a new yogurt type from Iceland, and trying to get products that people, exciting new cool products really that people are just going to buy. Arla protein, well, it's a yogurt, and like the whole new big milk that Arla does, well, it's no different really to any other milk, but it's just the way that it's marketed and it's put out there, and it's a slightly higher butterfat. We've been trying to be, most popular milk is semi-skimmed, and now we're marketing successfully, hopefully, to people to take higher butterfat. So I think that's the exciting thing in the dairy industry. I think the other example of the opposite is the problems that First Milk are having at the moment, who have got very limited amounts of products going in there, and they are just at the mercy of Muller or whoever's higher up the chain putting into supermarkets. So I think the future has got to be putting these added value products in that hopefully people want to eat and drink.
Ben?
Yeah, sorry. Ben from Derbyshire Farmers. Obviously, talking about new entrants, your business now is the lowest fixed cost way into farming. But with the milk contracts turning towards more based autumn calving systems, do you see a change in your farming strategy at all?
Quite interesting on actually, if you run the figures through the new Arla seasonality, in our business we're the same milk price for autumn and spring. So it's actually on the solids contract, so you actually, the way Arla is moving and a lot of other people are moving is for more fat and protein based milk rather than just white water. So actually if you factor in that, our milk price this year from Arla should be, if it stays the same, about 27p for spring calving. But because we're producing 4.5 fat, 3.5 protein, so it's actually about sitting down with your milk calculator, saying a system of where it actually gets the most out of my milk contract. And for us, it's sending as high, well, for us particularly protein, sending as much milk protein as we can, which luckily ties in with the lowest cost of production, which is milk from grass. And I think at the end of the day, certainly with spring calving, it's the lowest, as you say, it's the lowest cost way into this business. It's the cheapest cost of production. There's only 2% of farmers in the UK do it. 90% of farmers in Ireland do it. That's a huge difference. For us, so there's new entrants into dairy, and it's still a no-brainer. The milk, the seasonality is going to have to change hugely to make us not want to do that, because it just leaves you so flexible. No, well, I listened to Muller the other night, and I won't be going anywhere near Muller. Thank you. They are Arla for me. I think you've got two distinct choices now. You can either go with privately owned Muller and white water, basically milk all year round. So basically, you're playing to their tune. So they are telling you what to produce. And funnily enough, they're not going to pay you as much as Arla, who you can be a member of. You can get a 13th payment. You can send them high solids milk, you can send it when you want. Other people have got A and B pricing. With Arla, they've got a policy of growth. A and B pricing, so they're basically, you're involved with a company that's going to restrict your aspirations to produce more milk. Whereas Arla want to grow, because how is any milk company going to grow if they don't get more product to sell? So that's my pitch. So obviously you all want to be Arla. No, but it's certainly, you know, I'm new into Arla and bought into, you know, they were the villains of the piece almost 18 months ago. And now just the cooperative way of looking at it, you know, a fair price paid on the world price, you know, you take your ups and downs. The reality is we should be at the bottom now, but we're in the upper quartile of milk price because of the products and because of the company that we're involved with.
John, what are the options for people who can't be an Arla member? You sit there enthusiastic as you go to Arla. What are the other options at this moment in time? Because they're not recruiting. Well, they wouldn't take everybody on who might want to join.
No, but nobody's recruiting, are they, at the minute? So you're going to have to get into it and get yourself, if you're a new entrant, you're going to have to just hopefully get into the existing milk contract that was on the farm before and just take that for a while. You know, I'd say you just put yourself in a good place so you make yourself attractive to the best contract. You know, that will happen, it will change, and it will probably change in the next 12 months that Arla and whoever else more will start recruiting again, so there is your opportunity. With that will bring its own problems, because this is when First Milk are going to really feel the pain, when the biggest and the better located farmers are going to migrate off somewhere else, and that's going to have its huge social, economic impact on the whole industry as well. So it's going to be an interesting ride, I would say, in the next 12 to 18 months.
Thanks. Bosun, if he's about.
Good morning, Anthony Bosun, Norfolk Young Farmers, and well, I'm a spraying contractor from Norfolk, and one thing I've noticed over the last few years is our chemical armoury is getting less and less. People here might have heard of neonicotinoids, which was banned in the EU. This was basically seed treatment, and it's basically trying to save the bees, is how they worded it. It hasn't really done that, it's meant we've done more spraying. So we're also being threatened with slug pellet bans, which I know if anyone's seen, there's a lot of going on here trying to get slug pellet wise. But one big problem I've seen recently and heard about is in Holland. They've banned Roundup or glyphosate. My fear is really from speaking to the general public, hearing how the neonicotinoid ban just went through without us even really getting a say. How can we continue, this is for everybody, how can we as an industry continue to educate the public from making ridiculous and costly mistakes?
Much as I'd love to pass this over to my dairy farm on the left, I'm going to have to hold my hands up a little bit on this one. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to look at this. We appreciate what you're saying, and certainly as an arable farmer, it's very pertinent in my mind what's going on. How do we educate the public as to what it is? Well, there's two ways to come with it. First thing is to talk to people. Now, you know, as a spray contractor, you're going to be out there spraying more than anybody else is realistically. But you've got to, if you can get, even if you put signs up on the edge of the field to say what you're spraying, why you're spraying, and what it's safe to be there, try and reassure people wherever possible. Now, that might be a case of getting into schools or colleges and going in and talking to people and educating them, getting your face out, even in the paper, so they know what you're doing, what your business is, and explain the reasons. But it's interesting when you said that, we didn't have much of a say in the neonic ban. We've got people fighting in Europe for us, and I think Peter will probably expand on this a little bit more, but there's certainly cases where, from a political point of view, the NFU is doing fantastic things for us. We there always was sort of the stigma of what the NFU stood for, and it didn't do very much for us, but actually we need to support what they're doing, because the guys they've got working in Brussels for us and fighting for us is so important that they're doing an awful lot.
It's a future office holder for the NFU coming out, James. Very, very good spiel. Look, I'm going to go back to another issue about how we equip ourselves. And I think we talk about training a lot. Look, my brother tells me I learned all my bullshit from NFU.